7 feet tall, screaming for blood, horns growing out of a heavy iron helmet. This is the Viking legend we have been fed for centuries, the ultimate savage, the mindless destroyer who appeared out of the mist to burn civilization to the ground. But everything you're looking at is a Hollywood lie. The people we call Vikings weren't just brutes with axes. They were the astronauts of the Dark Ages. They were master engineers, fashion icons, and savvy politicians who reshaped the entire world. You're watching Be Explained, and this is the actual truth about the Northmen. First, let's kill the most famous myth of all, the horned helmet. You've seen it in every movie, cartoon, and video game. But in reality, it never happened. Archaeologists have dug up thousands of Viking graves, weapons, and tools. Do you know how many horned helmets they have found? 0. Think about it logically. You're in a shield wall, shoulder to shoulder, fighting for your life. Why would you wear handlebars on your head? That isn't fashion. That is a death wish. In close quarters combat, a horned helmet is just a convenient way for an enemy to grab you, pull you down, and snap your neck. So where did the image come from? It wasn't history. It was a costume designer for a Wagner opera in the 1800s. He gave the bad guys horns so the audience could tell them apart from the good guys. The real Vikings wore simple, rounded iron caps with nose guards. They were terrifying because they were practical, not because they looked like demons. But here is the real twist. The biggest lie isn't about their armour, it's about their smell. We picture them as filthy, muddy barbarians rotting in their own filth. The truth? The Vikings were arguably the cleanest people in Europe. While the Anglo-Saxons and Franks were bathing once or twice a year, the Vikings were obsessed with hygiene. They bathed at least once a week, every Saturday. In fact, in Scandinavian languages, the word for Saturday, lørdag, literally translates to washing day. When we dig up Viking graves, we don't just find swords. We find tweezers, razors, ear spoons, and intricate combs made from antler. These men bleached their beards to look younger and used eyeliner to look more intimidating. English monks actually wrote chronicles about this, sounding completely baffled by their habits. They noted that the Vikings combed their hair every day, bathed every Saturday, and changed their clothes regularly. They didn't just conquer territory with axes. They stood out because they brought a level of hygiene and self-care that was almost unheard of in the rest of Europe at the time. And while the rest of Europe was hiding in stone castles, afraid of the ocean, the Vikings were shrinking the planet. They were the greatest naval engineers history had ever seen. Their longships were technological miracles. They were built to flex with the waves rather than break against them. They had such a shallow draft that a ship carrying 50 warriors could float in just 3 feet of water. This meant they didn't need a harbour. They could sail across an ocean, turn onto a river, and land on a beach in your backyard. That is what made them scary. Not their screaming, but their engineering. They used this technology to build the first true global network. They reached North America 500 years before Columbus. They established trade routes that went all the way to Baghdad. We have found a Buddha statue in a Viking hoard in Sweden. We have found a ring in a Viking grave with the inscription for Allah. They even treated the Great Pyramids of Giza and the Hagia Sophia as tourist attractions. In Istanbul today, you can still see Viking graffiti carved into the marble of the Hagia Sophia that literally translates to, "Halfdan was here." They weren't just burning the world down, they were connecting it. Even their society was light years ahead of the civilized world. While European women were treated as property, Viking women held massive power. They ran the farms while the men were away. They held the keys to the treasury. They could inherit property and, crucially, they could divorce their husbands if they were treated poorly or if the husband was too lazy. So, the next time you see a movie, Viking roaring at the sky, covered in mud, remember this. They were brutal, yes. They were violent, absolutely. But they were also brilliant. They were the cleanest, smartest, and most sophisticated men in the room. They were traders, poets, and explorers who dared to sail off the edge of the map when everyone else was too afraid to leave their village. Thanks for watching. If you want the truth behind the myths, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one.